global hearts and souls. Well, there's just one problem. While we were planning a beautiful gathering of like-minded, inclusive, loving souls, some legislation was being voted upon that was going to be very hurtful to our LGBTQ friends, our brothers and sisters. And I'd love to say all those words, but they're so, and I don't want to. I'm sorry for the initials, but you know. A conversation began online with the ministers. We began having dialogue about, do we want to actually have a convention in a state that condones this kind of treatment? And every one of us was in support of finding another state for the gathering of souls. The governor just signed this religious freedom bill, allowing therapists and counselors to refuse to care for anyone in the LGBTQ community. And when we found that out, our leaders withdrew all of our plans for a convention in Tennessee. That's compassionate action. Now, we are not going to give up on Tennessee because the group has already planned to start doing dialogue with other groups in Tennessee to talk about this and to see about how to get it reversed. And I do truly think the Supreme Court is going to handle that for us. But in the meantime, we have this really mean-spirited activity going on in many of our states across the country under the guise of quote-unquote religious freedom. So when you see that word religious freedom, it used to mean that we could all worship the way we choose, right? Now it means we could discriminate against certain people. Sometimes we think of compassionate action, and what comes to mind almost immediately is feeding the homeless or rescuing animals, and that is certainly compassionate action. But compassionate action is really even more than that. Every time you say a prayer for another, you're practicing compassionate action. Every time you bring a bright smile to a grocery clerk who has just dealt with a grump, that's compassionate action. Don't be the grump, okay? When you treat somebody else anywhere like a real person, that's compassionate action. So many times, we're dealing with people out in the world of commerce, and there's a clerk here and a person there, and we don't really even look at them into their eyes and see them for who they are. But that's compassionate action when we stop and take the time to do that. Here's another one that I just recently experienced myself. I was buying coffee early one morning at a 7-Eleven on the way down to see my daughter in Dana Point. And I struck up a conversation with a lady that was also preparing her coffee, and we were chatting back and forth for a moment, just exchanging pleasantries. And when I went to the line to pay, she was in front of me, and I saw her fumbling in her purse. And so I said, gee, do you need some money? I'd be glad to give you some money. She said, oh, no, I'm buying your coffee. I was so thrilled. I thought, isn't that neat? She probably didn't need me to buy her coffee, and I certainly didn't need her to buy mine, but what a lovely gesture. And it just was something that stayed with me all day, and it still does, because that's just the kind of thing that's compassionate action for no reason whatsoever, just that act of generosity. And I know every now and again, if I'm in a fast food drive-thru, I will throw an extra $5 in and say, whatever they want behind me, let them, at least pay for this much for them. It's just fun, because you drive off and you know that the people behind you have no clue who you are, and you just have a great time with $5 to give somebody else a happier day. So we don't need to do big things in order to practice compassionate action. I think it's best performed when your inner knower speaks to you and tells you to go a little out of the way to give assistance to someone else. Our intuitive self guides us. And when we do that, we get that little nudge. You know that nudge, our inner guide. And when we listen to it, we're given rich opportunities to make a small difference in the life of another. I do a lot of interfaith work, and I'm very good friends with many, many Muslim people, and of course, they also deserve our compassion and our love in the circumstances that they deal with every single day, where they are treated like they're all terrorists, which they are definitely not. And they're beautiful, beautiful people practicing an incredible religion. How many of you get up before dawn to pray, and 5 times a day do that, but they pray 5 times a day. As an aside, I was in Turkey years ago with a group, and our guide was a Muslim, and they just kept running into glitches in the tour, things just, normal kinds of things, but glitches. And he'd be on his phone, and he'd be talking in Turkish really, really fast, and trying to figure out, what the next thing would be that we would be headed for. And I said to him, I said, Justin, you're dealing with all this stuff that's so frustrating, but you never stop smiling. I said, how do you do that? He said, I pray 5 times a day. So, it's a good thing. Personally, I have a little 3-minute timer on my phone. I take 3-minute breathing breaks during the day. That's my way of praying. Just stillness for 3 minutes in a parking lot, or before I go into an appointment, or just between chores at home. But I think it's so helpful for us to take those little breathers. But compassionate action, the reason I was going to tell you that is because there's a women's group of Muslim women who periodically get together, and I've been invited to participate with them. And what we do is we come bringing toothpaste and hand sanitizer and soap and socks, and we have these very, very inexpensive bags that we buy online. They're those backpacks that are kind of like string straps, and we fill about 300-400 of them. There's a whole assembly line. We all go down the line and throw things in. The kids come and they are thrown in the toothpaste. Anyway, and then we take those bags and put them in our cars. So that when we see somebody on the street, and they all have a gift card for fast food. And when we see somebody on the street, we have bags in our cars, and we're able to hand those bags off rather than money. And I just ran out, so I know that we're going to be getting ready to do another group. But it's something we could do here. Us, could do right here at Harmony, because it really doesn't take a lot of money at the dollar store, and dentists will donate the toothpaste if you ask them. They get free boxes of it. And you can ask your dentist and say, do you have a box of toothpaste we can give to the homeless? They would do that. So I know because my cousin's a dentist too, so I get it. Too often, Leo Buscaglia, who was the hug doctor, too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. All have the potential of turning a life around. I know some of you have had times when just somebody coming up and putting a hand on your shoulder made a difference. If you have a pet, you know that when you don't feel well, that pet knows and comes and sits in your lap. It'll lick your hand or communicate in some way its tenderness to you. Sometimes the animal knows before we do that we're out of sorts in some way. But by practicing self-compassion, we also get more in touch with our own feelings. Simply sitting still and noticing our bodies. So that we have maybe those little aches, maybe there are some tears that well up, maybe we notice good feelings, but whatever they are, we learn to accept them. This is so important in practicing compassionate action, to allow those feelings to be and to continue to sit, focus on the breath, and learn to notice those subtleties within yourself, because then we become more aware of the state of being of others through that practice, and feeling that compassion allows us to feel for others. Pema Chodron, who's written so many wonderful books, she's a Buddhist monk. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. When we recognize our shared humanity and we recognize that when one person suffers, we all suffer. That we are able to be guided then into the actions that make a difference. We don't do it for self-glorification, and we don't do it to save the world or try to fix it. We do it because we feel and relate within ourselves the pain of another. It's really as simple as saying, I know you're hurting right now. I just want